The FX503 is a budget gaming laptop from ASUS, so let's see what it's got to offer and help you decide if it's worth it. Starting with the specs, I've got the Intel i7 7700HQ CPU here, although it's also available with the 7300HQ. Both are still great options for gaming laptops. I've got 16GB of DDR4 memory running at 2400 MHz in dual channel, but 8GB configurations seem to be common. And there's a 128GB M.2 SATA SSD and a 1TB hard drive installed for storage. No NVMe support here, unfortunately. For the graphics, there's an Nvidia 1050 4GB, which runs the 15.6-inch 1080p 60Hz TN panel. But it also seems to be available with the 1060 or a 120Hz screen. For the network connectivity, there's a gigabit Ethernet port, support for 802.11 AC Wi-Fi, as well as Bluetooth 4.2. The lid and interior are both a brushed black plastic, but despite this, the overall build quality still felt pretty decent. The dimensions of the laptop are 38.4cm in width, 26.2cm in depth, and 2.4cm in height, so fairly average for a budget gaming laptop. It's listed with a weight of 2.5 kilos, and mine weighed closer to 2.6 kilos. With the power brick and cable for charging included, this rises up to 3.1 kilos. As mentioned, the screen here is a 15.6-inch 60Hz 1080p TN panel. No G-Sync available here though. The viewing angles of the screen weren't great. Not too bad side to side, but the colours shift quite a lot when looking up or down, which is typical from TN panels. The screen doesn't get that bright either, around 222 nits when at 100% brightness, with a 120:1 contrast ratio, so it also looked fairly washed out. I've measured the current colour gamut using the Spider 5 Pro, and my results returned 57% of sRGB, 41% of NTSC, and 44% of Adobe RGB. So on the lower side, but fairly similar to many other gaming laptops I've tested. The 120Hz panel claims to have 72% of the NTSC color gamut, so it seems like you've got the option of a high quality panel. I've taken a long exposure photo in a dark room as a worst case backlight bleed test, and we can see that in this instance it looked perfectly fine with no issues detected. But this will of course vary between laptops. There was a little screen flex while intentionally moving it, but overall it was fairly sturdy as the hinges are placed towards the far left and right corners. Opening the laptop with one finger was also possible, demonstrating a fairly even weight distribution, so it shouldn't easily fall off your lap. Above the display in the center is a 720p camera.
The camera wasn't too bad, and the microphone seems about average, but it was still able to pick up some of the laptop's own fan noise.
The chiclet keyboard has red backlighting, which can be adjusted between 3 levels of brightness or turned off completely. It's got 1.8mm of key travel, and the WASD keys have clear sides, allowing them to be seen easier. Otherwise, the keyboard was great to type with, and I didn't personally have any issues with it. The keys were on the quieter side to press. Here's how they sound to try and give you an idea. There was some keyboard flex while pushing down fairly hard on the plastic body, but it was never actually noticeable under normal use. Overall, it felt sturdy enough. The red power button is found towards the top right of the keyboard, and in the center appears to be some more air intakes. The touchpad was smooth to the touch with red accenting to match the black and red theme. It worked pretty well, the whole thing can be pressed down to click, and there are also separate left and right buttons. As for the I/O, on the left there's the power input, gigabit Ethernet port, HDMI 2.0 port, 2 USB 3.0 Type A ports, and 3.5mm audio combo jack. On the right, there's just an SD card slot, a third USB 3.0 Type A port, and Kensington lock. The speakers are found on the left and right sides, towards the front, and they actually sound pretty decent as far as laptop speakers go. A little bass, and not really tinny until you get into the higher volumes. The back just has the air exhaust vents towards the left and right corners, and the status LEDs are also viewable here with the lid closed. While the front has nothing at all, it's just completely smooth. Up on the brushed plastic lid, there's the ASUS logo in the center with a mirrored finish. Fingerprints show up on the lid and interior. They're a little harder to wipe away once dirt gets into the grooves of the finish. Underneath, there's some air intakes towards the back to keep everything cool, as well as some rubber feet that did a good job of preventing it from moving around while in use. Accessing the internals is very easy. The first panel can be removed by simply removing one Phillips head screw. This gives you easy access to one of the 2 memory slots, M.2 drive, and 2.5-inch drive bay. The rest of the bottom panel can be removed by taking out a few more screws. This is required if you want to access the Wi-Fi card, second memory slot, and the battery. Powering the laptop is a 4-cell 64Wh battery, and with a full charge and just watching YouTube videos with the screen on half brightness, keyboard lighting off, and background apps disabled, I was able to use it for 6 hours and 56 minutes. A surprising result, making this one of the best laptops I've tested in this test. The Intel integrated graphics were in use here thanks to Nvidia Optimus. While playing The Witcher 3 with medium settings and Nvidia's battery boost set to 30 FPS, the battery lasted for 55 minutes, and it sat at 30 FPS for the whole time without dipping. Overall, the battery life seemed quite good, considering the size of the battery and the price of the laptop. Thermal testing was completed with an ambient room temperature of 18 degrees Celsius. It's cold here as it's winter in Australia, so expect warmer temperatures in a warmer environment. At idle, both the CPU and GPU were fairly cool as the fan was still running, as shown in light blue toward the bottom of the graph. Working our way up the graph, the gaming benchmarks were tested with Watch Dogs 2 at high settings. The temperatures were pretty decent, regardless of fan speed or CPU undervolting, and didn't change too much. So we'll move up to the stress tests. The stress tests involved running Ada64 and the Heaven benchmark at the same time to try and fully utilize both CPU and graphics. The temperatures were the same with the auto or overboost fan profile in use, as shown in dark red and pink. The fans were running the same regardless, and the CPU was thermal throttling here at 95 degrees. Once we apply a minus 0.150 volt undervolt to the CPU, the temperatures drop a bit, and performance increases as the thermal throttling has been removed. These are the average clock speeds for the same temperature tests just shown. Like the temperatures shown before, in the gaming results, the clock speeds didn't differ too much here, at least in this game, all running fine in any case. Moving to the stress tests, we can see that while thermal throttled, in the dark red and pink bars, all 4 CPU cores were averaging around 150 MHz below the 3.4 GHz all-core turbo speed of the 7700HQ CPU. But with the minus 0.150 volt undervolt applied to the CPU, we're able to remove all throttling and get full performance even in this heavy stress test. These are the clock speeds I got while just running CPU-only stress tests without any GPU load. They're the same, so this just confirms that there was no throttling of any kind here. We only see thermal throttling when adding the GPU load. Likewise, here are some of the GPU-only tests in the Heaven benchmark. We're getting a nice boost with the 250 MHz overclock applied, and we'll see how this performs in the game soon. As for the external temperatures, where you'll actually be putting your hands, at idle the body of the laptop was sitting in the low 30s, so fairly cool. While gaming and under stress test, the center rises to the mid-40s, but the sides, in particular the WASD keys, stay fairly cool in comparison. It gets into the low 50s right up the back, but you shouldn't really be touching there anyway. As for the fan noise produced by the laptop, I'll let you have a listen to some of these tests. It was fairly quiet at idle, and while gaming or under stress test while undervolted, it was around the same. Louder but still quieter than many other gaming laptops I've tested. Without the CPU undervolt and the stress test though, it gets quite loud. Finally, let's take a look at some benchmarks. All tests were run at 1080p with the latest Nvidia drivers and Windows updates to date installed. The graphics were also overclocked 100 MHz out of the box, so I left this in place, but we'll see how overclocking further goes later. Fortnite was running pretty well, above 60 FPS on average with high settings, and I did find Epic fairly playable. Just not the best experience. I'd definitely look at running with lower settings here. Overwatch was tested playing with the bots, and it was running well at all setting levels. Above 60 FPS on average, even at Epic settings, with the 1% lows not too far behind. No problems at all with this one. PUBG was tested using the replay feature. You'll definitely want to play this one at lower settings to get the higher frame rates. As shown by the 1% lows, there are frequent dips in performance, which just seems to be typical for this game. CSGO was tested using the Uletical benchmark, and the average frame rates are pretty decent. No problem at all running this game with decent frame rates. Rainbow Six Siege was tested with the built-in benchmark, and again pretty well at all setting levels. Above 60 FPS at ultra settings in this test. Far Cry 5 was also tested with the built-in benchmark. The results weren't too bad, still running pretty well at the lower settings, but this is a more demanding game. Assassin's Creed Origins was also tested with the built-in benchmark, and I don't think it really needs a high frame rate to play, it should run alright at the lower settings, but again, it's another demanding game. Dota 2 was tested using a fairly intensive replay, so this should be a worst case scenario. Realistically, you'll probably get better results than this while actually playing, and even in this test, still above 60 FPS at ultra settings. Doom was tested using Vulkan, and no issues at all with this one, close to 60 FPS even at ultra settings, and it played pretty smoothly. Ghost Recon was tested with the built-in benchmark, and is a more demanding game. You'll definitely want to play this and other resource-intensive games at lower settings. Now for some benchmarking tools. I've tested Heaven, Valley, and Superposition from Unigine, as well as Firestrike, TimeSpy, and VRMark from 3DMark. Just pause the video if you want a detailed look at these results. Overall, the laptop is going alright in games. You just need to run with lower settings in most cases due to the 1050 graphics, at least at 1080p. Personally, I'd probably be looking at the 1050 Ti for myself, but it depends on the games you play and the settings used. As shown by the range of titles tested, results really vary based on these factors. As for overclocking, all of the gaming benchmarks just shown had a 100MHz GPU core overclock applied, but I was able to get this higher using MSI Afterburner. I've just retested PUBG with both the graphics overclock and CPU undervolt applied to try and give the best performance, and we're just seeing a small improvement to performance here. But keep in mind the default results were already with a 100MHz overclock applied, so that closes the gap a little. These Cinebench results give you an idea of CPU performance. And as discussed earlier, I wasn't seeing any throttling under a CPU-only workload, so there's no difference here with or without the CPU undervolt. The undervolting only helped in a combined CPU and GPU load. Just for reference, I've also included the newer 8th gen 8300H CPU for comparison, which is a little ahead. But that's also available in the newer ASUS FX504 laptop. In Crystal DiskMark, the 128GB M.2 SATA SSD was getting above 500MB per second in sequential reads and around 330MB per second in sequential writes. Here are the speeds for the 1TB 5400 RPM hard drive that was installed, on the lower side for this type of disk. I've also tested the SD card slot using a V90 rated card, so the card shouldn't be the bottleneck and these speeds aren't too bad. As for the price, here in Australia it goes for around 1500 Australian dollars. Unfortunately, I couldn't find pricing for the 16GB model I've got here. Same deal in the US. The 8GB model on Amazon is around $900 US, but you can check the configuration options and up-to-date pricing using the link in the video description. So what did you guys think of the FX503 gaming laptop from ASUS? I'm happy to see that the older model at least didn't have the same power limit throttling issues that I noted in the newer FX504. I'm guessing that was introduced with the newer 8th gen CPUs. It's a pretty decent gaming laptop. Personally, I'd probably be looking at the model with the 1060, but that's just me. It's also got a pretty good battery, and the graphics overclocked quite well in my unit. Otherwise, the only issue I had with it was the screen quality. It didn't get that bright, and combined with the lower contrast, it just looked washed out. Although I suspect that would be less of an issue in the 120Hz screen. Let me know what you guys thought down in the comments, and leave a like to let me know if you found the review useful. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for future tech videos like this one.